Right, so the next is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's have a look. So at the very start, it says, I don't know if they count this as Article 1, sometimes they do. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. I think it's like like the beginning of if you make a human rights, that's like the first thing you say, I guess. That's how I'm interpreting that. Okay, let's have a look. Alright, here we go. Right, so I've skipped a few here because like I said, I'm sticking to the main ones. If you haven't seen my first video on this, go to the first part 1 of human rights, just so you're up to scratch of where I am, because I'm just going to jump right ahead. So this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, what is violating our human rights this time when it comes to e-scooters, privately owned ones? Right, so Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honour and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of law against such interference or attacks. Right, so this human right protects your privacy, you know. In this case, in my case, so when I got arrested, about 2-3 hours later, the police posted it on Facebook straight away. In my eyes, that's a breach of my privacy. Attacks upon his honour and reputation. In this case, it was attacking my reputation because I was working at a bin company, and like most workplaces, they say when you're wearing a uniform, you're basically representing the company outside of work. So technically, you can lose a job over doing something bad outside of work that people can see your logo, because it like reflects on the company. And when I got arrested, I was in my work clothes, and as soon as I got arrested and my supervisor found out, it was all over Facebook because it was filmed. And when he found out, he actively was trying to get rid of me. He was actively trying to, because they were trying to get rid of me anyway, you know, because they weren't doing things by the book. I know my rights. They didn't like that, and naturally, in some workplaces, they just want to get rid of you once you know your rights. So they were actively trying to get rid of me anyway. But when they found out about me, you know, being arrested, and there was footage of me on Facebook, they were, for one, they was judging me as a criminal, so that was affecting my reputation. Everyone in my workplace from then on thought like I was the kind of guy who's like in trouble with the police and stuff. That affected my reputation. And also my supervisor, basically, he didn't say this in these words. Well, he basically did, but he didn't say he was going to sack me. But what he said was, oh, you better hope that your logo isn't seen in the video, because obviously if they do, I could get sacked for that because it's representing the company in a bad light. Yeah. And also what happened was I eventually, when I got sacked from that job eventually for other reasons, but well, reasons are related to this because I was stressed out. But anyway, that's another story. But still sticking to the Article 12 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the attack on my reputation. After I'd left that job, when I was looking for other work, because I had to declare, well, I didn't have to declare technically, but one or two of the agencies I was working for at the time, because my court date was coming up, I had to tell an agency while I was working for them, like, look, I can't come in on this day, because I hadn't built up enough days for holiday, right? And my court date was coming up, at least I thought it was. So I said to them, like, look, in about a week, I've got to go to court, right? I was going to change job anyway, so I wasn't really worried at the time about what I told them. I just told them the truth, right? I was like, look, I got caught this day, I can't come in, blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, cool. When I had come back, they told me there's no more work. So basically, I went from working to going to court, well, thinking I had court, coming back, and then when I come back to work, they were like, sorry, we don't need you. I know it was to do with me going to court. They thought I was a criminal, so they thought, you know what, this guy isn't reliable, we're not going to give him a job, so they got rid of me. So that's another attack on my reputation, another breach of my human rights. So I'm on like 4 now. They've already violated about 4 of my human rights. Article 13, it says about freedom of movement again. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Let's go over this again. So in my eyes, on the scooter I was traveling, I wasn't driving, because driving's more associated with commercial terms, and there has to be like some kind of motor vehicle involved. In their eyes, the games they try play, there has to be a motor vehicle involved, and in my eyes there is no motor vehicle involved, so I'm not driving. And even if I was, I wouldn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but even if I was, technically I'm not driving still, because you're only driving if you agree that you're driving. For everyone who knows about all that kind of stuff, maybe I'll make another video on that. Well, I will make a video explaining that at some point, but at the moment I'm going to stick to human rights. So yeah, they're in breach of Article 13 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to my freedom of movement, because the policeman stopping me on my scooter when there's no legislation that states that it's a motor vehicle, and him trying to stop me for that specifically is basically, for one, he's unlawfully detaining me, and he's like trying to apply these laws to me that don't exist. So yeah, he's in breach of my human rights, my freedom of movement, and arresting me is even worse, because now I'm imprisoned. But anyway, let's move on. Let's have a look. Article 17. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. So look, they're in breach of Article 17 as well of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I have the right to own a privately owned scooter, and it's simple as that. They can't just take my stuff off me, which it states in no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of property. So they took my property away from me too. So when they are stopping people and telling them they can't use a privately owned e-scooter, they're in breach of that human right, because you have the right to own property and you have the right to not be deprived of it. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're seizing them, they're taking them from people when all they're using them for is to go work or get food. It's ridiculous. So that's what, we're on like 5 or 6 human rights that have been breached. Let's keep going. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in his country. I can interpret that's under the same article, by the way. That's under, oh no, it's not, that's under Article 21. Everyone has the right to take part in government or his country directly through freely chosen representatives. That's, to do with, I don't want to get into that one, but it's to do with, taking part in the country, like being a part of the country, I guess, whether it's through your representatives or yourself. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in this country. In my eyes, the public service here will be the police, and the police are servants. So in my eyes, if the police are stopping you and punishing you for riding an e-scooter when you've done nothing wrong, I think in my eyes, I can interpret that as them not giving you equal access to public service, because you've been treated like a criminal when you're not by the public services. Let's move on. Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. So, in my eyes, that would be, because riding e-scooters is becoming like a culture thing. I ain't gone into the meaning of the word culture, so I don't know if I can say that or if it applies. But you know what it's like, when something comes out, what's a big deal when people are doing it a lot? Like, for example, collecting trainers and sneakers. There's like a sneaker culture, you know what I mean? Or like, say like music making. There's a music culture, you know what I mean? And in my eyes, technology and science and invention of new stuff, or e-scooters in general, I reckon you can interpret that as some kind of culture. And in my eyes, if you want to be a part of that, that's up to you. So I think they're in breach of you participating in a culture of the community just by taking your scooter and not letting you be a part of it, because it's like, there's these trials where they're making money off of them, but you're not allowed to use your own privately owned one. I interpret that as you being removed from the cultural, like enjoying to participate in the culture. To enjoy the, let's carry on. Article 27. To enjoy the arts and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. So the same thing again. e-scooters, going green and all this stuff they're going on about, advancement in technology, you can interpret that as scientific advancement e-scooters. So if they're stopping you from using them, they're basically in breach of Article 27, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of your ability to take part in that. All right, I'll leave this video at that, and I'll carry on part 3 on the Human Rights Act.